Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. This is a follow-up to the last video I did about Terence Crutcher. This brother was shot and killed by police in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was a 40-year-old African-American man. And now the officer who shot him and killed him has been charged with first-degree felony manslaughter. That officer's name is Betty Shelby. Now, although we should be somewhat satisfied that charges has been brought against this woman, we got to realize that the road to justice is long, that this is just the first step. There have been many cases where charges have been brought against officers, and those officers ended up walking away free. We had a case of Darren Wilson. We had a case of so many other cases where officers have killed black people and they walk away free. So let's not be pacified right now because charges have been filed. Let's not be complacent because charges have been filed. It's time to step up the vigilance. It's time to step up the action, the protest, and all that stuff. It's not time to relax. From what I understand, the Justice Department is still conducting their own independent investigation. And there may be additional charges. There may be additional charges. But let's not allow this to rock us to sleep and cause us to leave our posts. This thing is far from over. Often, some of these jurisdictions, they put on these shows for us to appease us, to satisfy us, to pacify us. We can't allow that to happen because we know for so many of these situations, the police walk away. And right now, I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happens here. Unfortunately, I mean, we have reached a point where injustice has become so normalized that we're not even surprised anymore. So in this case, I mean, one thing that makes this case so unbelievable for some and just so outrageous is that this brother had his hands up. He had his hands up at the time close to when he was shot. He had his hands up and he was backing away from the police officers. He was not charging the police. He was not struggling with the police. He wasn't even running from the police. This man had his hands up and he was slowly backing away from the police towards his car. Now, some people have said, well, perhaps he looked like he was reaching for something in his car, and they have used that to justify the killing of his brother. But the brother's attorney, Ben Crump, showed photographs of the scene of the killing. And those photographs make it clear and obvious that the window was rolled up on his vehicle. He wasn't reaching into a vehicle. He was leaning against the vehicle. And you can see the blood all over the window of the vehicle and dripping down the side of the vehicle. So that makes it clear and obvious to me that the brother wasn't reaching inside of the vehicle. So that's going to be an issue in the case. They're going to try to say that he posed a threat or a perceived threat to this woman. This woman claims that he was behaving strangely, that he was under the influence of drugs. She said that he ignored commands and that she was afraid that he was reaching for a weapon. And unfortunately, there are some people that are inclined to believe anything police say, especially coming from a white police officer. The police also claim that they found PCP in Mr. Crutcher's car, and they're going to try to use that to justify this killing. To say, well, he was non-compliant. They're going to talk about the nature of PCP and what it causes people to do. And not only are they going to try to justify this killing by the mere fact that they claim to have found drugs in his car, they're also going to pull up his criminal record. I haven't researched his record yet. I haven't heard much news about that, but I'm sure they're going to pull up his criminal record and use that to try to dehumanize this brother, to paint him as a monster. They're going to dig up all of his history and demonize him the same way they did to Trayvon Martin and plenty of other black victims of violence. So we just need to be prepared for that. We need to understand that that's what's going to happen. At the same time, when they dig into this brother's history, they're not going to do the same with respect to this officer. They're going to put the victim on trial because that's what they do. That's what the system is designed to do. Try the actual victim of the police brutality. That's what happens too often. Whereas this woman, this officer, Betty Shelby, even though she is the criminal, the focus won't be as much on her as it will be on him. And we need to highlight her history. Just like they try to highlight the history of the victim, we need to highlight her history. She's been accused of using excessive force twice. And those charges were found to be unfit, according to the police. And we shouldn't be surprised about that. I mean, because police, when they are policing their own, too often, they don't hold their own accountable. Too often that's the case. Not too long ago, I was reading a story out of Los Angeles about how all these complaints have been filed against officers, and none of them, or very few of them, have been found to be valid claims against the officers. And that's unbelievable. But that's what happens in the criminal justice system. That's what happens when the police police themselves. Also, this woman has been accused of making threatening calls to her ex-husband's wife, and this wife filed for a protective order against her. And there have been, a couple of other incidents. I'll include a link to an article from Essence magazine so that you can read that for yourself. But this woman needs to be scrutinized to the same degree as I'm sure they're going to scrutinize Terence Crutcher. So I just want us not to surrender. We have to continue this fight against police brutality. We can't allow this stuff to continue. The people have had enough. They've had enough. They're protesting in the streets of Charlotte, North Carolina for the killing of another black man, the brother Keith Scott. You have these professional athletes, people with fame and wealth and all that kind of stuff, with a lot to lose. But even they are saying enough is enough, and they are joining Colin Kaepernick's protests. There's only so much we will tolerate until things boil over and eventually explode. And again, that's what you're seeing in Charlotte, North Carolina. People have ran out of patience. The people are no longer going to be confined to these structured civil rights performances where Mr. Charlie tells you what time to be in town and what time to leave town, where he tells you the parameters of your demonstration, where you put on a show. That time is up. The people are taking matters into their own hands, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. The same people that want to condemn these protesters for incidences of violence, these same people, you don't hear a peep from them when our very government commits violence against people abroad, when our government drops drone bombs from drones on innocent civilians. You don't hear a peep from these people. You don't hear a peep from these people when our government invades countries, destroying property and people. You don't hear a peep from these people that are so concerned about peace and law and order.